Gameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Memory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, bring you our Week 13 FCS Wraparound, where we're going to go across the country to take a look at some of the key games this week in the FCS. But first, let's start off with the game between Harvard and Yale. This is one of college football's oldest rivalries, and when you look at Harvard in this game, they boast one of the most dynamic offenses in the country, led by dual-threat quarterback Connor Hempel. And Yale comes to this ballgame with a swarming defense led by defensive lineman Bo Palin, who also can double as an outside linebacker, and they move him all around his defense. Now, this game will come down to Yale's ability to stretch the field vertically in the passing game. I don't think they can. I believe they keep it horizontal versus the Crimson's defense, and that plays right into the strength of what Harvard does well. Their underneath coverage is outstanding, so I like Harvard to wrap up their season with a win over the Bulldogs. Pivotal game here in the Big South between Liberty and Charleston Southern. The Flames are a much better football team than their record indicates, and too many close losses will probably keep them out of the playoffs this season. But their defense, which is outstanding, could do its part in trying to keep the Bucks out of the playoffs as well. The Flames have one of the best secondaries in the FCS with two NFL prospects in cornerback Kevin Fogg and Walt Aikens, and the Bucks are coming off a heartbreaking loss to Gardner Webb, which now puts them in must-win mode just to secure an at-large bid. Now, the Bucks are a well-balanced squad that I feel as though got caught looking ahead, and I think they'll bounce back with a win this week versus Liberty behind the legs of running back Christian Reyes. Now let's move over to the Patriot League as Georgetown takes on Holy Cross, and something's got to give in this ball game. The Hoyas offense needs to help out its defense by not turning the ball over and putting them on a short field, while Holy Cross's defense has to be able to get a stop at critical times because their offense, led by freshman quarterback Peter Pujols, does a great job of putting points on the board. And I think it'll be the Crusaders' defense that breaks the trend this week and comes up big versus Georgetown. I like Holy Cross. Now let's go out west of the Big Sky Conference, where Northern Arizona takes on Southern Utah, and the Lumberjacks are a win away from securing a playoff bid, but the Thunderbirds, who are also fighting for an at-large spot, stand in their way. Expect a lot of defense in this matchup as both squads are very tough to move the ball against. Now, Northern Arizona does make the two-quarterback system work with Tyron Poe and Chase Cartwright, while running back Rayshawn Martin leads a ground-oriented ball offense for the Thunderbirds. I like Northern Arizona in this ball game. The Thunderbirds, while talented, are not making enough plays in the passing game to keep teams honest, and that'll get them in trouble versus the Lumberjacks. Now let's fly back out east and look at the Colonial Athletic Association, where Maine takes on New Hampshire, and this is the battle for the Bryce Cowell Musket. Maine enters with a 10-1 record and CAA champs, and this was a team that many picked to finish last in the conference preseason. They've done it with efficient offense and a dominating defense. Now for New Hampshire, it's been a tale of two seasons. They started out 1-3, but they have won 5 of the last 6, and they are ranked in the top 25 and pushing for an at-large bid as well after impressive victories over James Madison and Villanova. Both teams were ranked at the time, but I can't trust the Jekyll and Hyde defense of the Wildcats. I like the consistency of the Black Bears. I'm taking Maine to win this game. Next up, we have Duquesne taking on Monmouth, and the Dukes are co-champs of the Northeast Conference, and they are trying to finish the season on a 2-game winning streak. I'm a big fan of wide receiver Gianni Carter. I think he will not only have a big game, but also has a lot of pro potential. For Monmouth, they started the season 0-3, and they have put together a fine campaign, winning 5 of their last 7, including a big-time win over Robert Morris. I actually like the matchup along the line of scrimmage for Monmouth, and I think they'll be able to get pressure on Dylan Bushel, the quarterback, and force some turnovers, so look for the Hawks to win this one over Duquesne. Next up, we have the Florida Classic between Bethune-Cookman and Florida A&M, and it's been a rough year for new head coach Earl Holmes and the Rattlers, as they are a very young football team who have been in every ball game, but youth and inexperience has led to too many close losses. Now, Bethune-Cookman bounced back from a loss 2 weeks ago to Norfolk State by trouncing Hampton 42-14. Brian Jenkins, the head coach at Bethune-Cookman, has his team refocused and ready for a deep run in the FCS playoffs, and I don't think they'll slip up versus FAMU, as they must win to keep South Carolina State hoping for an at-large bid and not the MEAC championship. Now let's travel out to the Missouri Valley Conference, where South Dakota takes on North Dakota State, and although they're losers of 4 straight games, this matchup intrigues me because the Coyotes have the ability to score. However, when you're the best football team in the FCS and probably a top 15 team in the FBS, you don't worry about off days. I like the Bison to win this one at home. Big battle in the SoCon as Wofford takes on Furman, and this is a game that has huge playoff implications for Furman, whose offense has finally caught up to their defense. Now, the Paladins' defensive line has done a great job all season long in shutting down the running game, and honestly, that's all they'll face in this matchup versus Wofford, who, despite a very impressive start, have lost 3 straight games. Now, this would be a close one, but I like the Paladins to win this one at home. Next up, we're in the Ohio Valley Conference as Eastern Illinois takes on UT Martin, and all of the talk has been about the Eastern Illinois offense, and rightfully so, with quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo putting up Peyton Award type numbers, but that Panthers defense is equally as impressive, and they face another tough test this week versus the Skyhawks. UT Martin must start the game with the mindset of playing clock ball, and if they do a great job in sustaining drives and keeping Garoppolo and company off the field, they'll pull off the shocker. I think they'll do a great job in the first half, but the Panthers are just too strong and too stout and too explosive to come away losers. I like the Panthers on the road to knock off UT Martin. Now let's move over to the Pioneer League as Stetson takes on Mercer, and this is the battle of upstart first-year programs. Both teams' coaching staff have done a great job in coaching their respective squads this year, with Mercer having more success, sitting at 9-2 and 5-2 in the Pioneer League, and they were actually in position to tie for the conference title until a loss to Marist last week. Now Stetson has their hands full once again, especially in the secondary. I like Mercer to win this ball game at home. Now let's travel to the Southwestern Athletic Conference as Arkansas Pine Bluff takes on Prairie View A&M. And the Golden Lions have been a disappointing team this year, and it's not because of their coaching staff, because I think they have an excellent staff, but they're dealing with injuries and other losses to key players that have really derailed their season. For Prairie View, they were steamrolling toward a West Division title, but have lost 3 out of the last 4 SWAC games, including an overtime loss to Alabama State. I think they'll finish the season on a high note and knock off UAPB, so I like Prairie View to win this ball game at home. And finally, let's stay in the South where Nicholls State takes on Southeastern Louisiana. And this is a great game, not only in the Southland Conference, but in the state of Louisiana, which has played some great football this year in the FCS. Now, Nicholls State was off to a red-hot start, even knocking off FBS Western Michigan. But they must have left their defense somewhere in between, because they are giving up 42 points a game since. And that's not what you want to hear when you're facing a team, a top 5 team in Southeastern Louisiana. And the Lions have captured the Southland Conference crown for the first time in 52 years, and they have one of the best quarterbacks in the land in junior Brian Bennett, who's just as dangerous with his legs as he is with his arm. But I look at the Lions safeties being able to match up versus Colonel's tight end Nick Selfo. The talented junior tight end is a big piece of their passing game, and if they're able to take him away, they'll win this game. But I think they do have enough offense and more than enough defense to knock off the Colonels. I'm going with the Lions.